Somewhere in the quiet of this night, you have finally stopped moving. The doors are locked, the lights are low, and the long performance of the day is over at last. For a few hours, no one needs anything from you. No one is watching, and no one is waiting for you to be strong. And in that rare and fragile stillness, you can feel the full weight of everything you have been carrying come settling down onto your chest. I have been waiting for this exact moment, not because I needed the darkness or the silence in order to reach you, but because you finally needed them in order to hear me. So, before the world wakes and reaches for you again, with its noise and its demands and its thousand small alarms, I am asking you to be still and to listen, not with your ears alone, but with the deepest and most hidden part of you, the part that has spent so long aching for someone to simply speak your name with love. What I am about to pour into you tonight is not a speech, and it is not a lecture. It is a lifeline thrown to someone who has been treading water far longer than anyone around them ever guessed. It is a letter written in my own hand, with your name on the front of it, sealed with a love older and stronger than the universe it set spinning. And the very first thing I need you to understand, before anything else, is that you were never made to live the way you have been living. You were not built to walk through this world with your head bowed and your shoulders curled inward and your heart braced against a tomorrow you cannot see. Fear was never meant to be the air you breathe. It crept in slowly, one disappointment at a time, until you mistook it for your own personality. But it was always a trespasser, and tonight I am calling it out by name. I have been watching you longer than just tonight. I watched you push through this whole day with a smile you did not feel, answering everyone who needed something from you, while no one stopped to ask how you were holding up underneath it. I watched the moment late in the afternoon when the weight nearly caught up with you, and you swallowed it down and kept moving because there was no time and no room to fall apart. I have seen the silent calculations you run when you think no one is looking, the way your jaw tightens when a certain subject comes up, the particular heaviness that settles over you when the house finally goes quiet and there is nothing left to distract you from your own thoughts. None of it has been invisible to me. I have counted the nights you stared at the ceiling. I have heard the prayers you started and could not finish. And the reason I am drawing you into this stillness now, instead of leaving you to carry it one more night alone, is that I have something to lift off you, and I cannot lift it while you are still running. So stay here with me a little while. There is nowhere you need to be more than right here. Long before your first breath ever filled your lungs, long before your mother knew that a life was quietly forming inside her, I had already buried treasure deep in the soil of who you are. I place strength in you, and I do not mean the kind that comes from muscles or money or a title on a door, but a quieter and far stronger thing, a strength that can look an impossible situation full in the face and refuse to bow. I placed love in you, a love so wide and so deep that the ocean itself is only a shallow imitation of it. And I placed a clear and steady mind in you, a mind that was designed to hold peace even while the storm is still screaming outside the window. None of that was lost. It was only buried under years of fear and noise, and tonight, layer by layer, I am going to help you dig it back up. So before we go any further, I want you to understand exactly who you are, because almost everything that has gone wrong in the way you see yourself begins with forgetting it. You have been moving through this world like a beggar crouched at the side of the road, holding out your hands and hoping that a few scraps of good luck might fall from a sky you secretly believe has forgotten you. But that was never your identity, and it was never the posture I made you for. You are not a beggar waiting on chance. You are the child of the King over all kings, and there is royal blood running through your spiritual veins, and the full authority of heaven stands behind every step you take, whether you can feel it in the moment or not. It is time, here in the dark, for you to begin moving through your life, as though that were actually true, because it is more true than anything your circumstances have been telling you. The enemy of your soul has spent years working to make you forget exactly this, because he knows that a child who has forgotten who their father is can be ruled by fear, while a child who remembers cannot. So he whispers, patiently and relentlessly, the same handful of lies in 100 different disguises. He tells you that you are too small to matter, too ordinary to be chosen, too far gone to be useful, too late to begin again. He points at your weaknesses and calls them your identity. He drags up your failures and insists they are your future. And because he is subtle, he rarely shouts these things. He plants them as quiet thoughts that sound like your own voice, so that you accept them without ever questioning where they came from. But hear me clearly tonight. Those thoughts are not yours, and they are not mine, and they have no authority over you the moment you stop agreeing with them. You do not have to argue with the darkness or prove it wrong. You only have to remember whose you are, because the truth of your identity silences the lie, the way the sunrise silences the question of whether the night will last forever. So let your mouth form the words your soul has been too frightened to say out loud, that fear has no place in your life any longer, and that in the name of my Son, you are completely and forever free. Do not say it the way you recite something you no longer believe. Say it the way you would say a thing you have waited your whole life to finally be allowed to say, because it is not a wish and it is not a slogan. It is the unshakable truth about who you have been all along. When that name is spoken in faith, sickness has to loosen its grip, and lack has to break its hold, and every gray cloud of doubt and confusion that has been hanging over your head for years has to begin to scatter. Every cruel whisper that told you that you were not good enough, every accusation that said your best days were already behind you, every lie that insisted your pain was permanent and your situation could never change, all of it has to go, because you have been given the authority and the power and the full permission of heaven to rise up and take back everything that was ever stolen from you. So if the enemy slipped in somewhere along the road and made off with your joy, then take it back tonight, and take it back by force, not by waiting until you feel happy, but by giving thanks before the feeling arrives, because gratitude in the middle of a mess is not denial, and it is not pretending that hard things are easy. It is the single most powerful weapon I have placed in your hands. If something has been quietly trying to dismantle your home, filling it with silence and misunderstanding and a slow creeping coldness, then fight back, not with bitterness but with a love so generous and so stubborn and so unreasonable that the darkness simply cannot survive inside the same house. And if your provision has been under attack, if the numbers make your stomach drop every time you dare to look at them, then declare into the dark that the one who provides for you is alive, that he has never once failed, and that he is certainly not about to begin failing now, in the very hour you need him most. Exercise the kind of bold and fearless faith that moves mountains before the sun even rises on this day, because you are not facing your battles on your own strength. You are facing them with the limitless power of the one who made the universe moving through you, like current through a live wire. And let me say more about that weapon of thanksgiving, because you have been waiting, perhaps for years, to feel better before you allowed yourself to give thanks, as though gratitude were a reward you could only collect once the circumstances finally improved. But that is exactly backward, and it is part of why your joy has stayed locked away for so long. Thanksgiving is not the proof that the battle is over. It is the way the battle is won. When you choose to lift up genuine thanks while the trouble is still raging, while nothing visible has changed, and the reasons for despair are all still standing, you are not lying to yourself, and you are not denying the pain. You are declaring, with the most defiant act available to a human heart, that the trouble does not get the final word, that I am still good when life is not, and that your hope is anchored in something the storm cannot reach. That kind of gratitude unsettles the darkness more than any complaint ever could, because the darkness knows exactly what to do with a person who curses their circumstances, but it has no answer at all for a person who blesses in the middle of them. So take your joy back tonight, not by force of feeling, but by force of thanks, and watch how the thing that was stolen begins to come home, the moment you stop waiting for permission to be grateful. So do not accept the verdict of defeat just because the situation looks impossible from where you are sitting. The God you belong to has never specialized in easy and comfortable circumstances. He is the God of the impossible, the one who steps in precisely when every door has closed and every option has run out, and everyone who was supposed to help has already walked away. That is his favorite ground to work on. The exact place where there is no human solution left, because that is where it becomes unmistakable that what happens next could only have come from him. So lift your head right now, square your shoulders, look straight ahead into whatever is coming for you. You are not walking into your future as a victim of it. You are walking in as one who has already been handed the victory before the battle even began. There is the roar of a lion buried down inside you, and it has been there the whole time, and tonight I am telling you to let it out. You are more than a conqueror, and that is not a pretty phrase to hang on a wall. It is a declaration spoken over your life by the very one who made you and knows exactly what you are capable of when you finally stop trying to do everything in your own small strength. And yet here is the deepest secret of all, the one the world will never tell you, and it is going to sound at first like the opposite of everything I have just said. The truest warrior is not the one who grips the hardest. The truest warrior is the one who has learned that the battle was never his to win alone, and who therefore fights from a place of rest instead of a place of panic. So even your rising up tonight is meant to end, strangely and beautifully, in a kind of falling. You lift your head, and then you lay your striving down. You let the lion roar, and then you let yourself collapse, finally into arms that have been beneath you the entire time. That is where we are going now, out of the white-knuckled fight and into the open hand. So feel the night around you, and feel how tired your hands are, because I want to begin where you actually are. I see the way you have been gripping the wheel of your own life until your knuckles turned white and your fingers forgot how to let go. I see you lying awake doing the math again, counting the bills, counting the days, counting the ways it might all come apart. I see the lists you make and the schedules you build and the people you keep trying to fix, and underneath all of it, I hear the same exhausted prayer repeating itself in your chest, that if you could only work a little harder, plan a little smarter, and stay awake a little longer, then maybe, finally, the peace you have been chasing your whole life would arrive. But I have to tell you the truth tonight, gently, the way a father tells a child who has been carrying something far too heavy. You cannot grip your way into peace. You cannot worry your way into a better future. Not 1 hour of life has ever been added to anyone by the weight of their anxiety, and not one storm has ever been calmed by a tighter hold on the wheel. Somewhere along the way you came to believe a quiet and crushing lie, that you are the load-bearing wall of every situation you are in, that if you ever stopped holding the weight even for a moment, the whole structure of your life and the lives of everyone depending on you would come crashing down. So you never put it down, you carry it into your sleep, and you carry it into your rest, and you carry it into the few moments that were supposed to be your own. But you were never the foundation. You were never the source of the strength holding everything up. You were only a child who took on a job that belonged to me and then nearly broke under the size of it. And the most freeing thing I can tell you tonight is that the things you have been holding so desperately were already being held the whole time by hands far stronger and far more capable than yours. The people you love are safer in my keeping than they ever were in your worry. The future you keep trying to force into place is already secured by the one who made the future. So you are not abandoning your responsibilities when you finally set the weight down. You are simply returning it to the only one who was ever strong enough to carry it. So I am asking you to do the very thing that frightens you most. I am asking you to open your hands, not to give up, not to stop caring, not to go numb to the people and the dreams you love, but simply to release the things that were never yours to carry in the first place. There is a difference, and it matters. You were never meant to be the one holding the whole world together with your too tired human hands. That was never your assignment. I am already holding the universe in place, keeping the stars in their courses and the seasons in their turning, and the same hands that do all of that are more than able to hold your small and trembling world as well. Your part was always so much simpler than the impossible thing you took on. Your part is to trust, my part is to hold, and in all of eternity I have never once dropped anything I was holding. So name the things one by one and hand them over to me as you name them, because a weight stays heaviest as long as it remains vague and enormous and unspoken. There is the worry about money that wakes you before the alarm, the quiet math your mind runs the instant your eyes open. Hand it to me. There is the person whose well-being you cannot stop carrying, the one whose choices you cannot control no matter how hard you try. Hand them to me. There is the future you keep trying to see around the corner of, straining to know how it all turns out so you can finally relax, and I am asking you to hand me even that, the not knowing itself, the unbearable uncertainty you have been gripping in place of the answer you do not have. Hand it all to me, item by item, until your hands are genuinely empty, and notice that the emptiness does not feel like loss the way you feared it would. It feels like rest. It feels like the first deep breath after holding it far too long. You were never meant to be the keeper of outcomes. You were only ever meant to be loved, and to trust the one who loves you, and to walk one honest step at a time into a future that is already safe in my keeping. So let yourself fall. I know how strange and terrifying that sounds to someone who has survived this long by holding on, but I am asking you to lean back into arms that have been beneath you the entire time. Even on the nights you were sure there was nothing underneath you at all. And while you fall, let go of the clock, because I know the clock is part of what is crushing you. I know you look at it and your heart starts to race, certain that you have run out of time, that the window has closed, that the dream came due and you missed the payment, that it is simply too late now to mend what broke. But hear me, I am the one who invented time. I stood outside of it and made it the way an artist stands outside the canvas and decides where the morning will be. I see the end of your story from the very beginning of it, all at once, and I am telling you with complete certainty that nothing in your life is running late. Everything is unfolding exactly along the path I drew for you in love before you ever drew your first breath. And the long waiting that has worn you down was never the empty, wasted delay you took it for. I know it felt like being forgotten. I know there were seasons that stretched on so long that you stopped expecting anything to change, and you settled into a quiet resignation that looked from the outside like patience, but felt on the inside like grief. But I was never idle in those years. The seed that is buried looks, to anyone watching, exactly like a seed that has been thrown away and abandoned in the dark, and yet that buried darkness is the only place a seed can do the slow and hidden work of becoming a tree. So it has been with you. In the very seasons you were most certain that nothing was happening, I was doing the deepest work of all, sinking your roots down past the reach of the storms that were coming, building in you a strength and a depth and a compassion that only the long waiting could have produced. You will see it one day, all of it, and you will understand that not one of those slow and silent years was lost, and that the timing you fought so hard against was the very thing that prepared you to carry what I am about to place into your hands. So let this be the night your long and exhausting performance finally ends. You do not have to prove your worth to anyone who is keeping score. You do not have to earn the approval of the people whose opinion has held you hostage. And you most certainly do not have to perform for me, because there is nothing left for you to win. You were accepted before you ever did a single thing right. You were loved before you had anything to offer. You are already enough, not because of what you built or fixed or achieved, but for the simple and unshakable reason that I made you, and I love what I made. So let the oldest and bravest prayer rise quietly out of you tonight, the prayer that admits it is no longer your own will you are clutching so desperately, but mine, and that at long last you are willing to let mine be done. The moment those words leave a heart that truly means them, something shifts in the unseen world, and a weight you have carried for years, perhaps for your whole life, begins to lift off your shoulders like a heavy coat sliding to the floor. That lightness is not your imagination. It is the peace that runs deeper than understanding, the peace I have been waiting, patiently and tenderly, to give you all along. And I want you to know that I am not asking you to surrender to me from a distance, as if I were far off and unaware of what your life actually feels like from the inside. I know about the report that made your heart stop the moment your eyes reached the bottom of the page. I know about the unpaid bills stacked on the counter that seem to multiply quietly in the dark. I know the particular ache of the loneliness that visits you in the smallest hours, when the house has gone silent and you are lying there staring up into nothing, wondering whether anyone alive truly sees the battles you fight behind a smile that costs you more than anyone will ever guess. I see every one of those battles. I have counted every tear you cried where no one else could see, and I have heard every prayer you were too exhausted to even finish saying out loud. So bring all of it to me, and bring it now, not tomorrow, once you have things a little more under control, not next week when the worst of it has passed, but right now, in the honest mess of this present moment. You were never built to carry this alone. You were never built to carry this at all. And I know the word surrender frightens you, because the world has spent your whole life teaching you to hear it wrong. The world tells you that to surrender is to lose, that it means you were weak, that you gave up, that you failed to fight hard enough. And so you have white-knuckled your way through situations you should have laid down years ago, certain that letting go would be a kind of defeat. But surrendering to me is the single greatest victory you will ever win in your entire life, and I need you to hear that clearly enough to believe it. It is a victory over the stress that has been quietly destroying your body from the inside, stealing your health one tense and sleepless night at a time. It is a victory over the anxiety that has been robbing you of rest and of joy and of your real presence with the very people you love most. It is a victory over the fear that has been slowly shrinking your world down to a small and airless space, one cautious decision at a time, until you forgot how wide your life was always meant to be. So when you finally let go and fall into me, you are not laying down your sword in defeat. You are laying down a battle you were never supposed to be fighting in the first place, and you are stepping into the rest your soul has been desperate for, since long before you could name the ache. I have already overcome this entire world. There is nothing left out there for you to conquer on your own, and in me you will find the deep and lasting peace you have been searching for your whole life without even knowing its name. Now let me speak to the heaviest thing you are carrying, the thing you reach for in the dark out of pure habit, the bag of stones you keep slung over your shoulder that was never yours to hold. I am talking about your past. I see how you torment yourself with the endless replay of it. You go back to the argument that went too far and said the thing that cannot be unsaid. You go back to the decision that cost you so much, and you live inside the version of the story where you chose differently. You go back to the moment you let down the person who was counting on you, and you watch their face fall again and again, as if reliving it could somehow change it. And underneath the loud and obvious regrets, you keep a quieter shame, the secret habits and the hidden failures you were certain no one ever saw. But I saw them. I saw every single one of them in full daylight with nothing hidden. And I want to tell you exactly what I did with what I saw. I covered all of it in my own light. I did not file it away in some drawer where it could be pulled back out later to humiliate you. I paid for it completely and finally on a hill outside the city walls 2,000 years ago, and that payment has never once come up short and never will. So I refuse tonight to let your past go on haunting you, and I am asking you to make the same refusal with me. Believe me when I tell you that your failures have not merely been hidden. They have been erased, wiped clean off the record, as though they were never written there at all. When I look at you, I do not see the sum of your worst days. I do not add up your mistakes and arrive at a verdict. I see the breathtaking result of a love that went to the very end to call you mine. So take those bitter what-ifs that loop endlessly through your mind, and one by one, let me turn them into something else entirely. Where you keep asking what might have happened if you had chosen differently, let a quiet thank you rise instead. Gratitude that every wrong turn you ever took has already been forgiven. Where you keep asking whether you should have been a better parent, a better partner, a better friend, let the question dissolve into thanks that my grace caught you every single time you fell and set you back on your feet and kept you walking. My mercy is not only new each morning, as you have so often heard. My mercy is brand new in this exact hour, this exact minute, this exact breath you are drawing right now, and what you are receiving tonight is a slate so clean it is as if the past has been gently lifted off you and carried away while you were not looking. You are clean, not partly clean, not clean enough to get by, but thoroughly and permanently clean. So lift your chin and stop staring down at your feet in shame, and step forward into the light without dragging one more ounce of the old weight behind you. And understand why this matters so much, because the enemy of your soul has a particular reason for wanting you locked inside that cage of regret. He knows that a person paralyzed by shame cannot move forward into a single one of the good things I have prepared, and so he works tirelessly to keep you replaying the worst of yourself, convinced you are dirty and useless and unworthy of anything good ever again. But I am the one who forgives every sin without exception, who heals every wound no matter how old, who reaches down into the deepest pit of despair and lifts a person out of it, and who personally restores the dignity that shame spent years trying to strip away. So I am lifting your chin tonight, not so you can stare at your failures one more time, but so you can finally see the wide and beautiful horizon I have painted specifically for you, a view that has been there the whole time while you kept your eyes fixed on the ground. Take a slow and cleansing breath. Forgive yourself here, in this very second, the way I forgave you long ago. Let the warm and healing water of a complete and total forgiveness pour over your tired mind and your aching heart, and feel how it leaves nothing of the old stain behind. And hear how complete this really is, because you have been taught to believe in a mercy that runs thin, a forgiveness you have to keep re-earning every time you fall again. But my mercy is not rationed, and it does not run out. You have heard that it is new every morning, and that is true. But I am telling you something even closer than that tonight. My mercy is new in this very hour, in this very minute, in the very second you are breathing right now, and it will be just as new in the next second. and the one after that, for as long as you live and beyond. You are not receiving a limited supply that you must spend carefully and hope it lasts. You are standing under a waterfall that never stops falling. So you do not have to carry the failures of an hour ago or a year ago or a lifetime ago into the next moment with you. Every moment with me is a genuinely clean beginning, not because you finally got it right, but because that is simply who I am and what my love does again and again tirelessly, forever. I know how long you have lived inside costumes, and I want to take them off you now, here in the privacy of this night where no one is watching. There is the heavy coat of perfectionism you put on every morning to convince your family and your work that you never falter and never crack. There is the thick second skin of pleasing everyone, which you wrapped around yourself long ago because somewhere deep inside you came to believe that if you could only keep enough people happy, none of them would ever leave. And there is the carefully constructed image of someone who has it all together, the calm and capable face you present to the world, even on the days you are quietly falling apart behind it. I am asking you to strip every one of those costumes off, because you cannot step into the fullness of what I have for you while you are still dressed in the stained and exhausting garments of trying to be enough on your own. Let go of the desperate need to look successful to a world that is utterly blind to what truly matters, and let me dress you instead. You have no idea how heavy those costumes have become, because you put them on so long ago that you forgot you were ever allowed to take them off. The coat of perfectionism is exhausting precisely because it can never rest, since one mistake, one crack, one ordinary human failure threatens to undo the whole performance, and so you live braced and vigilant every waking hour. The second skin of pleasing everyone slowly suffocates you, because the moment you make one person happy, another is disappointed, and you spend your life running between them, certain that your worth depends on keeping every face around you satisfied. And the polished image of having it all together costs you the most of all, because it forces you to grieve alone, and to struggle alone, and to be afraid alone, since admitting the truth might shatter the picture you have worked so hard to maintain. But I never asked you to wear any of it. I have seen the real face beneath every mask the entire time, and I have loved that face, the tired and unguarded and honest one, far more than I ever loved the costume. So set them down tonight, all of them, here where no one is watching, and let your shoulders finally drop. I am wrapping a robe around your tired shoulders tonight, a robe so white it seems to give off its own light. The flawless righteousness of my Son, draped over everything you have ever done, and everything you have ever feared you are. You did not earn this robe, and you could not have. It was bought for you at the highest price that has ever been paid for anything. And here is the wonder of it. When you wear it, and you are wearing it now, I no longer look at you and see your failures or your old addictions, or the times you lost your temper or broke a trust, or chose the wrong thing knowing better. I see the spotless beauty of my Son covering every inch of you. So you are not sneaking into my presence through a back door like an unwanted guest hoping to go unnoticed. You are walking straight through the front gate as a royal child of the Most High, with your head up and your steps unashamed. And when the accuser comes, as he will, to read you the list of everything you have done wrong, you do not have to argue with him, or defend yourself, or shrink. You only have to point quietly to the robe and let it answer for you, because it cost more than every accusation he could ever make. So, understand what has actually happened, because it is the most staggering exchange in all of history, and it was made specifically with you in mind. You are standing blameless before the throne of grace tonight, not because you finally managed to clean yourself up, and not because you are perfect, but because my Son stepped into your place and took upon himself everything you deserved, so that you could receive everything he deserved instead. He took the guilt so that you could wear the innocence. He took the distance so that you could have the nearness. So you no longer have to creep toward me like a servant bracing for punishment, glancing nervously over your shoulder, half expecting to be turned away. You get to walk in like a child who is certain of their father's delight, with the bold and breathtaking joy of someone who finally knows exactly whose they are. Stand up tall inside that truth. You are completely hidden in him now, and there is nothing left in your past with the power to disqualify you from a single thing I have planned. And as you sit there in the deepening dark, with the robe around your shoulders and the old weight finally set down, notice how the night itself has changed since we began. It is quieter now, and you are quieter inside it. The frantic spinning has slowed. We have crossed over from the heavy hours into the still ones, the part of the night that belongs not to fear but to the kind of holy work that can only be done when everything else has finally gone silent. So let us keep going, deeper into this stillness, because there is more I want to lift off you before the morning comes. Now, while the night is still deep and the world is still asleep, I want you to do something almost no one does anymore. I want you to silence the noise, put down the small glowing rectangle that has been feeding you fear and comparison for far too long. Turn off the voices that have built an entire empire on your anxiety, the ones who learned that fear keeps you watching and panic keeps you clicking, so they sell you a fresh disaster every single hour and call it news. Step away from the endless scroll that shows you the most flattering sliver of everyone else's life while hiding the ordinary, struggling, unfiltered rest of it, the part that looks exactly like yours. You have been swallowing the chaotic opinions of a frightened world for so long that you forgot there was ever anything quieter to drink. So in this sacred and set-apart space, I want you to reach instead for something ancient and unbreakable. Let my living words become the sound that fills the rooms of your mind where the noise used to live. Open the book that men and women have clung to in dungeons and on deathbeds, and through every dark age, and let me speak to you there in a way no anchor and no algorithm and no clever voice for hire ever could. I want you to see clearly what that endless scroll has been doing to you, because it has been quietly stealing something precious while pretending to keep you connected. Every time you hold up your own ordinary, unglamorous, behind-the-scenes life against the polished and curated highlight of someone else's, you lose every single time, because you are comparing the fullness of your reality with all its mess and struggle and unfinished places against the one carefully chosen moment they decided to show the world. It is not a fair contest, and it was never meant to be one. So you scroll and you shrink and you come away feeling that you are somehow behind, less successful, less beautiful, less happy, less whatever it is the screen has convinced you that you ought to be. But you were never created to measure your life against a stranger's performance. You were created to walk your own road at the pace I set for you, toward the future I designed specifically for you, and your only honest comparison is between who you were yesterday and who you are becoming in me. So, set the comparison down. It has never once made you more whole. It has only made you more afraid. And in its place, let me show you who you actually are, not who you are not. I am not handing you a feeling that glows for a moment and fades by morning. I am offering you bread for the exact road you are walking, strength for the exact battle you are facing today, and healing for the exact wound that has refused to close, no matter what you have tried. So do not race through the pages the way a tired student crams before an exam. Read slowly, taste the sweetness in every line. Let the truth sink down past your intellect and past your shifting emotions and past your very reasonable doubts, all the way to the bedrock of your soul, where nothing can shake it loose again. When you read that I will never leave you, understand that you are not reading a comforting sentiment, but a binding and eternal covenant that no force in heaven or earth can break. When you read that, I will supply every need out of riches that have no end, understand that you are reading a promise sealed in blood, not a wish whispered into the wind. My word is not ink lying still on a page. It is alive, and it carries the very breath that first hung the stars. It has the power to mend a body the experts have given up on, to slow a heart pounding in panic in the blackest hour of the night, and to rebuild a mind that trauma and loss and years of carrying too much alone had quietly fractured. And more than anything, when you read it, you are not studying ancient history. You are reading your own true name, your real identity, the most intimate love letter ever written, composed for you before the foundation of the world was even laid. And I want you to understand that when I speak to you through those pages, I am not speaking in vague generalities to a faceless crowd. I am speaking to you specifically by name because I know you down to the smallest hidden detail. I know the exact wound you have been carrying for years, the one you have learned to walk around so carefully that most people never even guess it is there. I know the exact fear that wakes you in the blackest hour of the night and will not let you fall back asleep. And I know the exact dream that lives in the deepest and most protected room of your heart, the one you have never spoken aloud to another living soul, because you were afraid they would tell you it was too big, or too late, or too foolish for someone like you. I know that dream, because I am the one who planted it there, and I did not plant it to torment you. So when you come to my word weary and uncertain, you are not coming to a stranger handing out the same generic comfort to everyone who passes. You are coming to the one who formed you in secret and has watched over every day of your life, and who knows precisely which promise your soul needs to hear tonight, and is waiting to speak it directly into the wound that has been aching the longest. And as you read, I want my truth to begin breaking chains in you that you did not even know you were wearing, because you have been bound to lies for so long that some of them have started to feel like simple facts about yourself. There is the lie that you are not enough and never will be, no matter how hard you try. There is the lie that your future is dark and your best days are already spent and behind you. There is the lie that your mistakes are permanent and your worst failures are unforgivable, that your dreams are foolish and too late, that your faith is naive, and that your prayers rise no higher than the ceiling. You have heard those lies repeated so many times in so many voices that you stopped questioning them. But every one of them shatters the instant it is held up against my word, because my word does not describe the frightened and diminished self the world handed you. It describes the true self I made and named and love. So read it not to gather information, but to remember who you are. Let the truth of a love that never changes and never expires drop anchor in your soul, so that when the next storm rolls in, and it will, you are not torn loose and dragged out to sea, but held fast to something that cannot move. Heaven and earth will eventually burn and fade and be made gloriously new, but not one syllable of my word will ever pass away or grow 1 degree less true than the day it was first spoken. So rest your tired head against the unshakable pillar of my promises tonight, and let perfect truth wash the last trace of fear out of your heart. But I have to tell you tonight where your fiercest battle is actually being fought, because you have been pouring your strength into the wrong front line. The war that will decide your life is not raging mainly in your bank account, or your relationships, or even your body. It is raging in the narrow and sacred space between your ears, in the quiet country of your thoughts, and you have been leaving the front door of that country wide open. You let every anxious thought wander in and unpack its bags and make itself at home. You replay a conversation from days ago and feel the sting all over again. You rehearse arguments for fights that have not happened and may never happen. You build elaborate, detailed catastrophes in your imagination, and then move into them and live there, in a future of disaster that exists nowhere but in your own unguarded mind. You have, without meaning to, handed the enemy a key to your most valuable possession and invited him to come and go as he pleases. And tonight I am asking you to take that key back, with all the authority of heaven standing behind your hand as you turn it in the lock. Your mind is a garden, and you are its keeper, and everything that ever takes root in your life first sprouts there in the soil of your thoughts. So you must decide deliberately and daily what you will allow to grow. I have given you a real and supernatural power over the thoughts that pass through, the power to choose what you dwell on and what you refuse. So when a thought of panic or despair tries to push its way in, do not stand there negotiating with it. Tell it plainly that you refuse it, that your mind is not an open field for the enemy to sow his lies in, that it belongs to my Son and to no one else. And then do not leave the empty space for it to creep back into. Fill it at once with something true. Where fear tries to settle, plant the truth that I never gave you a spirit of fear in the first place, but a spirit of power and of love and of a sound and steady mind. Where hopelessness tries to take hold, plant the truth that the plans I hold for you are plans for a future and a hope, never for ruin. And where the lie of being utterly alone tries to spread its roots, plant the unbreakable truth that I will never leave you and never walk away, not under any circumstance that exists. Guard that garden fiercely, because what grows there is what your whole life will eventually become. And do not underestimate how much your thoughts are quietly shaping the reality you live in. The things you rehearse in your mind do not stay in your mind. They leak out into your body and your mood and your decisions and the way you carry yourself into every room. If you spend your days steeped in failure and defeat and worst-case endings, you will begin to feel defeated, and feeling defeated, you will begin to live that way, and the very disaster you feared will find it easier to come true, because you walk toward it with your shoulders already down. But the reverse is just as true, and it is far better news. When you fill your mind, deliberately and stubbornly, with my promises instead of the world's problems, with what I say about your future instead of what your fear predicts, you begin to feel the steadiness of someone who is held, and feeling held you begin to walk differently. And walking differently, you begin to live in the open and surprising freedom of heaven instead of the cramped and airless rooms of dread. So this is not a small or optional discipline. It is one of the most powerful things you will ever do. Filter every thought through the light of my love. Let the false ones fall away unwatered, and let the true ones sink their roots deep, and watch, over time, how the whole landscape of your life slowly changes to match the garden you have finally begun to tend. And do not be discouraged when you discover that this is not a battle you win only once. You will catch the old thoughts creeping back in tomorrow, and the day after, and many days after that, and you may be tempted to believe that because they returned, you have failed. But returning thoughts are not failure. A garden is not weeded a single time and then left forever. The keeper walks the rows again every morning, pulling what does not belong before it can take hold, and the walking itself is the work, and the work is never wasted. So when fear knocks again tomorrow, you do not have to despair that you are back where you started, because you are not. Every time you refuse a lie and choose a truth, the choosing gets a little easier and the lie gets a little weaker, until one day you notice that the thought which used to rule you for hours can no longer hold your attention for more than a moment. This is how the mind is healed, not in a single dramatic instant, but in 10,000 small and faithful choices made quietly, day after day, until peace stops being something you have to fight for and becomes simply the place where you live. And once your mind begins to clear, Once the lies stop running the place and the truth takes root in the soil of your thoughts, something is going to start happening on the outside of you that you cannot stop, and I want you to be ready for it instead of afraid of it. For years now you have been hiding. Not hiding from any real danger, but hiding the most alive part of who you are. You have kept your voice carefully low at work because you did not want to make anyone uncomfortable. You have watered down your deepest convictions at the family table because you did not want to be the one who caused the tension. You have smiled politely and said nothing while people mocked the very things you hold most sacred because you did not want to be seen as strange or extreme or out of step with the times. And I understand completely why you did it. The pressure is real, the fear of rejection cuts deep, and the longing to belong and be accepted is a good and human thing that I placed in you myself. But there comes a moment when staying silent is no longer safe, not for you, and not for the people around you who are quietly drowning and need someone, anyone, to throw them the truth like a rope. So tonight I am asking you to throw off that heavy blanket of intimidation that has been smothering your voice for so long. Do not be ashamed of the hope you carry. This is the hour to be quietly, unmistakably bold about who you belong to and what has changed in you and why it changed everything. Let the very air of your home and your workplace and your neighborhood feel different because you are in it. And understand that you do not become bold by becoming harsh. You do not win anyone with sharp words or angry arguments or clever takedowns. You carry the day with something far more powerful than any of those, the steady, blinding light of a life that has been visibly and undeniably transformed by love. So when the people around you spiral into panic about the economy, you speak with a calm that unnerves them because your provider has never failed you. When they tremble about sickness spreading through the world, you stand up inside that fear and speak protection and healing over the ones you love with the quiet confidence of a child who actually knows their father. And when the darkness around you grows louder and more aggressive, your answer is not to grow louder back. Your answer is simply to shine brighter. That is your assignment. That is your weapon. You were never made to be a timid and easily frightened creature, because I placed my own spirit inside you to lead you into all truth and to fill you with power and with love and with a clear and disciplined mind. So use what has already been given. Speak the truth with a holy fire burning in you, and let the people around you see the raw and beautiful strength of a life that has been completely surrendered and is now living proof that everything I promise is real. If they laugh, let them laugh. If they walk away, let them walk away. You are moving towards something so vast and so eternal that the fleeting opinions of people who will be forgotten within a single passing lifetime simply do not have the weight to slow you down. You are carrying light into the darkest corners of this world, and there is no more important or beautiful work in all of creation, and you walk into it covered head to foot in armor that nothing in the seen or the unseen realm can pierce. And understand that the world has never needed your particular light more than it does right now. Everywhere you look, there is brokenness spreading and confusion deepening and hearts wandering without any direction. And the temptation in a time like this is to pull the light inward and hide it, to keep your head down and simply survive. But darkness does not need much to take a room. It only needs the lights to stay off, and a single steady flame in a dark place does more than you can imagine, because the people stumbling around in that dark are not looking for someone with all the answers. They are looking for someone who is not afraid, someone whose peace is real, someone who is still standing and still kind and still hopeful when by every earthly measure they should not be. When they see that in you, something in them dares to hope again, often before a single word is ever spoken. So do not measure your impact by how loud or impressive you are. Measure it by how faithfully you keep burning. There are people who will find their way out of the dark simply because you refused to let your flame go out, and you may never know their names until eternity finally tells you the whole story of who was watching while you quietly kept the faith. But even a light must be tended before it can burn for others, and even the bravest heart has to let itself be held before it can keep holding everyone else. So having taken the weight off your past, and the costumes off your shoulders, and the noise out of your mind, and having stirred up the courage to stop hiding, I want to turn you back inward now, gently, and give you something you have been denying yourself for far too long. I want to give you permission to feel. Let the tears come, and do not rush to wipe them away, and do not apologize for them as though they were a failure rather than the most honest thing you have done in years. I see how hard you work to keep the surface smooth where other people can see it. I watch you walk into your day each morning with a smile pressed carefully into place because falling apart is simply not on the schedule. I watch you sit at the table with the people you love and swallow your own fear about the future so that you can keep being the strong one, the steady one, the one everybody else leans on. I know about the wall you built around your heart, thick and high and patient, because the last time you let someone close enough to see your real and unguarded pain, they used it against you, and you quietly promised yourself you would never be that exposed again. But here, tonight in this safe and sacred space where it is only the two of us, I am asking you to let that wall come down. You do not have to be strong right now. You do not have to perform a faith. You cannot feel or arrange your words in the proper order or strike the right reverent posture before you are allowed to come to me. You only have to be real, and I can meet you in that realness without a flicker of judgment, because I understand your pain not the way a stranger understands it from the outside, guessing at how it must feel, but from the inside where I have actually been. I know what it is to be misunderstood by the very people who were supposed to know me best. I know what it is to carry a weight heavy enough to crush a person. I know what it is to cry out in the worst of the dark and wonder, in the silence that answers, whether anyone is listening at all. I have stood in that exact place, and because I have stood there, I can come and stand there with you now. I did not love you from a safe and comfortable distance, the way a king might pity his subjects from behind palace walls. I came down into the very middle of human experience and lived it from the inside, with all its dust and grief and disappointment. I felt hunger and exhaustion. I watched people I loved misunderstand me and walk away. I was mocked for the things I held most sacred. I knelt in the dark on the worst night of all and sweat and trembled and asked if there were any other way for the weight to pass. So when I tell you that I understand, I am not offering you the thin comfort of a stranger who is only imagining what your pain must be like. I am telling you that I have wept the kind of tears you are weeping, and carried the kind of weight you are carrying, and felt the silence press in after a cry for help. And that is precisely why you can fall apart in front of me without the smallest fear of being judged for it. So weep, if you need to, for the years you spent chasing things that left you empty the moment you finally caught them. Weep for the relationships that broke apart, no matter how desperately your bare hands tried to hold them together. Weep for the version of yourself you lost somewhere along the road, in the long and quiet erosion between who you were made to be and who the world kept pressuring you to become. These tears are not weakness, and they are not the collapse of your faith. They are a release, beautiful and necessary, of everything your heart has been holding far too long, and every one of them falls into holy ground, like a seed that will one day come up as a harvest you cannot yet imagine. But do not confuse this kind of honest sorrow with the crushing guilt the enemy is always trying to load onto your back. They feel similar for a moment, but they pull in opposite directions, and you must learn to tell them apart. The world's guilt tells you that you are worthless and broken beyond repair, and ought to be ashamed of yourself for the rest of your days. It is a weight that pushes you away from me, out into the cold and the dark and the lonely. But the conviction that comes from me says something completely different. It says that you are deeply and unalterably loved, and that it is simply time to stop running and come home. It does not push you away. It draws you in, irresistibly, toward the warmth of arms that have been open the whole time. So come to me now exactly as you are. Do not clean yourself up first. Do not wait until you have fixed a few things, or reached some level of spiritual maturity you imagine would make you more presentable. Bring me the raw and unflattering truth of your deepest regrets, because the very moment you stop pretending to be fine, the moment you set down the performance of a wholeness you do not feel, that is the precise moment I am finally free to step in and do the healing you were never able to do for yourself, no matter how hard you tried. And as the hidden sorrow flows out of you, it leaves a wide and open space behind it, and into that space I pour a joy that does not depend on a single thing changing in your circumstances, a joy rooted so far down in you that nothing in this world can reach it to steal it. So lean your tired head against me, and let the grief and the frustration and the long-stored disappointment of your whole life flow out like floodwater through a broken dam. You are safe here. You have always been safe here. And here is the secret that the world, which is so afraid of tears, will never understand. The same channel that lets the sorrow out is the channel that lets the joy in. As long as you held everything dammed up and frozen, nothing could move in either direction, and you mistook that numbness for peace, but it was only a wall holding back the flood. When you finally let the grief flow, you do not empty yourself into nothing. You make room, and into the very space that the sorrow leaves behind, I pour a joy you could not have held before, because there was no room for it, while you were still clenched around the pain. This is a joy that does not wait for your circumstances to improve before it arrives. It does not check the news first, or read the report, or count what is in your account. It comes from a spring far deeper than any of that, a spring I placed in you that the world did not give, and therefore cannot take away. So do not be afraid of how much you have to let out tonight. The deeper the grief you release, the deeper the well you are opening for the joy that is coming to fill it. Now open your hands again, only this time look at them. Really look. Look at how long they have been clenched, and at what they have been clutching so hard that they forgot how to rest. You have lost sleep over money. You have strained the people you love over money. You have spent your own health like loose change over money, driven by the gnawing terror that there will never be enough, that security is always one disaster away from vanishing and leaving you with nothing in your fists. You have worked yourself down to the bone, chasing it, missing the childhoods that will not come around again, overlooking the ones who only ever wanted your actual presence, ignoring a body that kept asking, more and more faintly, for rest. And all of it has gone toward gathering things that rust and break, and wear out and fall out of fashion, and are quietly replaced by the next version of themselves. So let me tell you something tonight, that if you truly receive it, will change the way you look at everything. Everything you own is on loan, and the lease is short. Every material thing you have ever gripped will one day return to dust without exception. You arrived in this world holding nothing, and you will leave it holding nothing. And the only things that will follow you out the door are the things that were never physical to begin with. So I am asking you to shift your whole gaze off the visible and temporary things of this striving earth and onto the permanent and invisible things of a kingdom that does not pass away. Because the day will come when you stand before me, and on that day I will not ask to see your accounts. I will not ask about your title or your portfolio or how many people followed you. I will be looking for something else entirely, something far more valuable and far more easily missed. I will be looking for the quiet, unrecorded moments of love that no one applauded. I will be looking for the times you held your tongue when everything in you was straining to shout. I will be looking for the times you gave from what little you had to someone who had even less. I will be looking for every time you chose a person over a profit, a kindness over a convenience, a step of faith over a flinch of fear. Those are the only treasures that survive the crossing, and you already have more of them stored up than you have ever given yourself credit for. So stop seeing the rest of your life as a frightening countdown to an ending, and start seeing it as a wide and shining window of opportunity still standing open. There is still time to forgive a debt and let someone walk free of it. There is still time to speak a word of real kindness to someone who feels invisible to the entire world. There is still time to reach out to the one you have been meaning to call for months and simply tell them they matter. Those small and humble acts are the true gold of heaven, worth more than anything the markets of earth could ever produce, and they outlast every building and every fortune that will one day be forgotten. And do not tell yourself that these things are too small to matter, because the smallness is exactly the point. You keep waiting for some grand and dramatic moment to make your life count, some sweeping gesture worthy of attention, and so the ordinary opportunities pass by unused, while you wait for the extraordinary one that rarely comes. But the kingdom is built almost entirely out of small things done with great love. A single phone call can lift a weight off someone who has been drowning in silence for weeks. A few honest words of encouragement can keep a person standing who was one disappointment away from giving up. A debt forgiven, a grudge released, a quiet apology offered to someone you wronged long ago. These are the kinds of acts that rearrange eternity, and every one of them is within your reach this very week. So, when the morning comes and you step back into your ordinary life, do not despise the small chances I will place in front of you. Take them, speak the kind word, make the call, forgive the debt, reach for the one who feels invisible. You are not too insignificant to change someone's whole day, and you never know which small kindness will turn out, in the long account of heaven, to have been the thing that saved a life. The world has trained you to do the opposite of all of this. The world tells you to hoard what you have and to guard yourself at every cost and to look out for your own interests first and always, and it whispers that generosity is a luxury for people who can afford it, and that you, of all people, cannot afford it right now. But I am inviting you into the freedom of pouring yourself out. Give your love away without keeping a careful ledger of who owes you what in return. Give your peace away to the anxious and frightened people sitting right beside you who are quietly drowning and have no idea how to ask for help. Because the strange arithmetic of my kingdom is that the more of yourself you pour into the souls of other people, the more you have, not less. When you invest your hours and your energy and your tenderness in people, instead of locking them away for yourself, you are building a legacy that will go on, echoing down the long halls of eternity, still standing and still bearing fruit, long after every earthly building has crumbled into dust and every account balance has been forgotten. You were never meant to be a sealed and stagnant pond, gripping its water until it goes stale. You were meant to be a river, and a river is only truly alive because it gives everything it receives away. I know that even now in all of this, a particular ache keeps returning, and I want to speak to it directly because it is one of the enemy's favorite lies and one of his most effective. It is the loneliness that has nothing to do with whether people are in the room. You can be surrounded and still feel utterly unseen. You can sit in a crowd and feel like a ghost no one notices. You have looked around at the empty chairs and the quiet walls, and believed the cruel idea that no one alive could possibly understand the exact shape of what you are carrying, that your particular mixture of pain is too strange or too heavy for anyone to share. But I am asking you right now to open the eyes underneath your eyes and see what is actually here. You are not alone. You have never, for one single second of your entire existence, been alone. If the veil were pulled back and you could see what truly fills the room where you are sitting tonight, you would be astonished into silence. There are armies of light standing watch around you. There are messengers carrying out assignments on your behalf that you will not fully understand until eternity finally explains everything that was happening behind the scenes while you were trusting me in the dark. There were storms in your past that should have swept you away entirely, and you have no idea how close they came because my hand held you upright in the middle of them. On nights, you were certain you were facing them completely alone. There were doors I quietly closed and dangers I quietly turned aside, and you never saw a single one of them, and so you never thanked me for them. And that is all right, because I was never protecting you in order to be thanked. And it was never only invisible help either. I have placed real and flesh and blood people along your road, people who carried a word you needed exactly when you needed it, people who showed up at the right hour without ever knowing why they felt the urge to call, people whose simple kindness kept you going on a day you were closer to the edge than they ever realized. Some of them you noticed, many of them you did not, but I have been weaving a net of care beneath your life for years, out of both the seen and the unseen, and you have been held by it the entire time you believed you were falling through empty air. And you are not only surrounded, you are joined, in this very hour, across every border and every ocean and every language. There are countless others crying out to the same Father with the same hope, and your spirit is woven invisibly together with all of them into something far larger than your one small situation makes it feel. You are part of a great and ancient family. Think of the ones who went before you, the grandparents who knelt and prayed for you by name before you were ever born, asking me to guard and guide a child they would not live to hold. Think of the faithful ones across the centuries who sang in the face of the worst the world could do to them, whose courage and tears and prayers are woven straight into the road you are walking on tonight. You are drawing from a well of strength that goes down thousands of years and runs forward into eternity without ever going dry. The enemy works so hard to make you feel cut off, precisely because a person who feels alone is a person who is easy to deceive, with no chorus of truth around them to drown out the lies. So tonight I am wrapping you in a communion that distance cannot cut, and disease cannot reach, and time cannot wear away, and death itself cannot break. And I want you to feel the full weight of belonging to that family, because the enemy has worked so hard to convince you that you are a stranger on the outside of everything, your face pressed to the glass, watching other people live the life of warmth and connection that was never meant for you. That was a lie from the beginning. You have a place at the table, and it was set for you before you were born, and it has never once been given away to anyone else. There is no requirement you failed to meet, no application you forgot to file, no reason whatsoever that you should stand at the edge, wondering whether you are truly welcome. You are not a guest who might overstay. You are family, and family does not knock and wait to see if the door will open. They walk in because they are home. So whenever that old loneliness comes creeping back to tell you that you do not belong anywhere, and that no one would notice if you simply disappeared, you're reminded of this, that the one who made the stars knows your name and your story, and the exact number of hairs on your head, and counts you among his own, and would cross all of heaven and earth to find you if you were ever lost. And closer than any of that, closer than the armies and the family, and the great cloud of all who have gone before, there is me, So pause now. Stop moving. Stop planning your next thought before this one has even finished. I want you to feel something that is more real than the chair you are sitting in. I am not a distant and disappointed presence watching you from somewhere far away with my arms folded. I am right here, nearer to you than your very next breath, nearer than the heartbeat keeping its steady time inside your chest. I am the father who, when he sees his child still a long way off down the road, does not wait with crossed arms for an apology, but lifts the hem of his robe and runs to meet them. I am the shepherd who will leave the whole flock safe on the hillside and go out into the night and the brambles to find the single one that wandered off, and who carries it home on his own shoulders, rejoicing rather than scolding. I am the friend who stays closer than a brother, who does not leave when the trouble comes, but draws nearer the moment it does. So feel my presence now, not as an idea you once learned, not as a tidy piece of theology filed away in your head, but as a warm and living nearness as real as anything your hands have ever touched. I am here, I see you. I know you more thoroughly and more tenderly than you know yourself. And I love every single thing I see, with a love that had no beginning and will have no end, and was never once conditional on your getting anything right. And I want you to sit with how rare and how healing that combination truly is, because you have spent your whole life believing that to be fully known and to be fully loved could not happen at the same time. You learned, somewhere along the way, that the people who knew the most about you tended to love you the least, that exposure brought rejection, that if anyone ever saw the whole of you, the hidden thoughts and the private failures and the parts you are ashamed of, they would turn away. And so you have lived split in two, showing people the version of yourself you hoped they could love while hiding the version you were sure they could not. But with me there is no such division, and there never was. I know all of it, every thought you have never confessed, every motive you have hidden even from yourself, every failure no one else witnessed, and I love you anyway, fully, completely, without 1 ounce of my love held back in reserve. You can finally stop managing what I am allowed to see. You can stop curating yourself for me. You are completely known and completely loved at the very same time, and that is the safest place a human heart can ever stand. The one place where you never have to perform again. So breathe that love in, slowly, all the way down into the coldest and most frightened corners of you that have not felt warmth in a very long time. I am pouring peace directly into your body as you sit there, calming the racing of your heart, loosening the tension you have carried so long in your shoulders and your jaw and your forehead that you have nearly forgotten what it feels like to be unclenched. So breathe with me now, slowly and deliberately, because your breath is the oldest and simplest gift I ever gave you, and you have been holding it shallow and tight for far too long. I was the one who breathed the very first breath into you, who filled your small lungs before you had done anything at all to earn the air, and I will be there at the very last one too. So there is nothing in between those two breaths that you have to face without me. So draw the air in deep, all the way down, and as it fills you, let it carry my peace into every corner of your chest that has been braced and rigid for years. And then let it out, slowly, and as it leaves, let it carry out with it your desperate need to manage and control and fix every single detail of a life that was always meant to be lived in partnership with me and never alone. Each breath in is a small act of receiving. Each breath out is a small act of surrender. And if you will simply keep breathing with me here in the dark, you will feel the frantic noise in your mind begin to fade into a stillness you had almost stopped believing was possible. You do not have to do anything to deserve this. You do not have to speak the right words, or strike the right tone, or prove anything at all. Just be still, and let yourself be loved. Let the light of my nearness swallow up every shadow of fear that has been trailing behind you, and rest in the knowledge that the same arms holding the whole turning universe together are more than able to hold the small and weary weight of you. And out of that quiet, I want to hear your voice, not the polished and careful voice you use when you think you are supposed to sound spiritual, but the real one, the one that cracks when you finally tell the truth, the one that comes up from the deepest and most unguarded part of you. Speak to me plainly. I am not a distant deity to be impressed by elegant phrases. I am your Father, and what moves me is not eloquence but honesty, the unfiltered cry of a heart that has stopped hiding. So do not bring me the worn and repeated prayers you recite out of habit, the ones your mouth says while your mind drifts somewhere else entirely. I am listening for something far more intimate than that. I hear every word, and I hear every whisper, and I hear even the groans that are too deep for any words at all, the prayers you cannot find language for, the ache that rises out of you wordless in the dark. Those reach me with a sweetness and a force that no polished and practiced performance ever could, because they come from the true center of you, with nothing arranged and nothing pretended. So open your mouth and ask me for what you actually need, not what you think you are allowed to want. Ask for strength to face the thing in front of you. Ask for courage to keep walking when everything in you wants to stop. Ask for wisdom when the road forks and you cannot tell which way leads home. Ask for healing, real and specific, for your body and your mind and the old wound in your heart that never closed the way it should have. And do not stop at yourself. Lift up the people you love and lay them before me by name. Speak your children into my hands. Speak your partner. Speak the ones in your family who wandered off from everything they once believed, even the ones who mock what you hold most sacred, even the ones whose choices have broken your heart over and over. Do not pray for them with judgment hardening your voice. Pray for them with the fierce and stubborn love that simply refuses to give up, the love that asks me to shatter the chains they cannot see, to open the eyes they have squeezed shut, and to chase them down with the same relentless tenderness with which I have always chased you. And then let your prayers spill out past the walls of your own life entirely, out to the community around you, out to a hurting and exhausted world, out to people suffering in ways you may never know, until your praying becomes a river running toward the driest places on earth. And when you have poured out the very last of it, when your heart is finally emptied of every hidden weight, then make the bravest surrender of all, the one the dying and the trusting have whispered across every century, that into my hands you commit your spirit, your breath, your unfinished dreams, your fears you do not even have words for yet. Lay it all down. The battle is mine, the outcome is mine. Your only work from here is to trust and to rest and to keep your eyes on me. And notice what happens in you the moment the prayer truly leaves your hands. There is a particular kind of rest that can only be reached on the far side of surrender, a stillness you cannot manufacture by willpower or earn by effort, and it settles over you the instant you stop trying to control the answer and simply hand the whole matter to me. You have spent so long believing that if you let go of a worry even for a moment, you were being careless, that your anxiety was somehow holding the situation together, that to stop fretting was to stop loving. But the truth is the exact reverse. Your worry never once changed an outcome. It only wore you down and stole your sleep and robbed the people around you of the calm and present version of you they needed most. So when you finally release it into my hands, you are not abandoning anyone. You are placing them somewhere infinitely safer than your anxiety ever kept them. And then you are free, for the first time in a very long time, to simply rest, not because everything is resolved, but because everything is held. The problem may still be unsolved when the morning comes, but you will carry it differently because you will no longer be carrying it alone, and that difference is everything. And now, even though it is still dark, Even though the dawn has not yet shown itself at the edge of the sky, I want you to do the most defiant and powerful thing a heart can do in the middle of the night. I want you to sing, wherever you are, however broken or untrained your voice may sound, with no one listening and no one judging. I want you to find a melody and lift it. I know exactly how heavy your chest feels in this hour, with the whole weight of your life pressing down, and a tiredness that makes you want to close your eyes and go silent and let the dark have the last word. I feel the way despair tries to reach up and choke the song before it can even rise out of your throat. But hear me, because this is one of the great secrets of the unseen world. The praise that means the very most to me is not the easy praise that comes when life is going beautifully and worship costs you nothing. The praise that shakes the heavens and turns the tide is the praise that rises from someone who has every earthly reason to stay silent and chooses to sing anyway. When you are wounded and worn down, the enemy fully expects you to weep and complain and curse the darkness, because that is the predictable response, the one he has seen 1,000 times. But when you lift your hands and offer thanks in the very middle of the pain, while nothing has changed and the waiting drags on, you do something that completely confuses him and dismantles his plans. You break the chains of despair simply by opening your mouth. You shift the entire atmosphere of the room you are sitting in. You send up an invitation that all of heaven leans in to answer. So do not wait for the outcome you are hoping for before you begin to thank me. Thank me now in the storm, in the uncertainty, in the long unbroken silence of the wait. Your song in this moment is the native language of a heart that has decided to trust its maker no matter what the circumstances are screaming, and it announces to the whole spiritual world that your God is far larger than your trouble, and that you know it down to your bones. So sing the old songs your grandmother used to hum over the kitchen sink in the early morning. Sing the simple choruses you learned the day you first gave me your heart and everything felt new and possible and full of light. Sing something that has never existed before, rising straight up out of the honest depths of you. I hear every note, I feel the weight behind every word, and it reaches me as the most beautiful music in all the universe, not because it is flawless, but because it comes from a heart that chose me in the dark. And while you sing, I am not idle. I am fighting your battles. I am moving mountains and opening doors and turning hearts and changing outcomes while your worship fills the air. And I am singing too over you a song of fierce and protecting love. So listen for it in the quiet spaces between your own notes, and let our voices become one sound that will go on, echoing through eternity, long after this brief night has ended. So do not let the heavy silence of fear be the thing that fills your home anymore. Fill the air around you instead with the holy and undeniable sound of your faith, because your song is far more than a comfort to your own heart. Your song is a sword, and it cuts through the lies in the unseen world. Your song is a light, and it shows you the next stretch of the path when you cannot see the whole road ahead. Your song is an invitation, and all of heaven leans toward the sound of a heart that chooses to worship in the dark. You may feel as though you are the weakest and most defeated person in the world as you sit there in the low light, and yet the moment you open your mouth in praise, you become one of the most dangerous people in all of creation to everything that has been trying to destroy you, because nothing the darkness has can stand against a soul that keeps singing when it has every reason to be silent. And you are not singing alone, even when the room is empty and your voice is the only one in it. The same praise you are lifting in the dark of this night is rising at this very hour from countless other hearts scattered across the earth, the weary and the grieving and the barely holding on, each of them choosing, like you, to worship in their own midnight. Your single voice is joining a chorus far larger than you can hear, an unbroken sound that has been rising to me without pause since the first morning of the world, and will keep rising long after this age has ended. And above and beneath all of it, I am singing too. I sing over you the way a parent hums over a frightened child until the fear lets go and sleep finally comes. A song you cannot quite make out with your ears, but that your spirit recognizes the moment it touches you. A song of belonging and of safety and of fierce protecting love. So when your own voice falters, when the words run out and the melody breaks, do not stop and do not be ashamed. Just listen in the quiet between your notes, and you will begin to hear the deeper music that has been holding you all along, and you will understand that your small and broken song was never a solo. It was always a duet. And listen now to how the night has changed around you. The deepest dark is behind us. Out beyond the window, the black has begun, almost imperceptibly, to thin toward the first faint gray, the hour when the birds stir before there is any light to see them by. We have come a long way through these hours together, and there is one last and deepest place I want to take you before the sun comes up, a place beneath even your worship and your tears. Now I want to reach all the way down to the deepest and most real part of you, past your worries and your prayers, and even your song, down to your spirit, the part of you that existed in my heart before your body was ever shaped, the part that has always quietly known. There is more to all of this than your eyes can see. There is a knowing in you that sits beneath all the noise and the fear, a stubborn certainty that this passing life is not the whole story, and that you were made for something far greater and far more lasting than anything this world has been able to hand you. Tonight, I am inviting you to open the eyes of that spirit and look at what is truly happening around you. The curtain between this world and my eternal kingdom is thinner than you have ever imagined, and in this set-apart hour, I am drawing it back just far enough for you to catch a glimpse of what lies on the other side. You are not merely a body that happens to have a soul. You are an eternal being who is passing for a little while through a temporary and breakable world, and the day comes for every one of us when the temporary falls quietly away, and only the eternal is left standing in its full and undimmed glory. This is why the wounds of this world, real and painful as they are, can never reach the deepest part of who you are. Your body grows tired and ages and aches, and the world can bruise it, and the years can wear it down, but the body was always the temporary tent and never the true house. The you that I made, the eternal you, the spirit I breathed into being and called by name, cannot be touched by any of it. Sickness cannot reach it. Failure cannot diminish it. Even death, when it comes, does not end it, but only releases it. The way a hand opens and lets a bird rise into the sky, it was always meant for. So when you feel as though life has been chipping away at you, taking piece after piece until you fear there will be nothing left, hear me. The essential you is untouched. It has been kept safe in me the entire time, guarded in a place no trouble in this world can ever break into. You have been grieving losses that were only ever losses of the temporary, while the eternal part of you, the part that truly matters, has remained whole and radiant and entirely beyond the reach of harm. You are moving, even in this season, from a faith that has to walk in the dark toward a day when you will simply see with your own eyes everything you once had to believe without seeing. You are moving from the dim and partial light of now, where you only catch glimpses and trust me for the rest, toward the full and brilliant clarity of a country where nothing is hidden and nothing is uncertain anymore. And that country is not as far off as your fear keeps insisting. The veil keeps thinning. The warm air of home is already beginning to drift across your face in your most quiet and open moments, when the noise dies down enough for you to feel it. And waiting on the other side are not strangers but family, the ones you loved who crossed over before you and have missed you as much as you have missed them, and beyond them the faithful ones of every age, The saints and the quiet warriors whose stories changed the course of history and whose prayers, prayed long before you were born, are woven invisibly into the very road you are walking on tonight. You are not the beginning of your story, and you are not the end of it. You are one bright thread in something vast and ancient and unbreakably alive. So I am asking you to release the fear of what waits beyond what you can see and touch, because that fear has cast a long shadow over far too many of your days. I am wrapping you and everyone you love in a peace that outruns all understanding, and I am promising you that I will take perfect and attentive care of everything you place into my hands, exactly as I have cared for you through every season you have already walked, including the ones where you could feel nothing of my presence and wondered in the dark whether I was even there. And the most overwhelming reunion is coming, a day when you will see again the ones you loved who crossed over before you and embrace them in a joy that makes the most beautiful reunion this world has ever staged look pale and small. You will hold again the people you have grieved, and there will be no more goodbye waiting at the end of it, no more illness to fear, and no more clock running down, only a welcome with no shadow in it at all. And above all of that, beyond every other face you have longed to see, you will look directly and without any distance into the eyes of the one who made you and has loved you every second of every day of your entire life. And in that single look you will understand, all at once, everything you ever wondered about why your life unfolded the way it did, and every tear will finally make sense, and not one of them will have been wasted. So let this truth settle into you and stay. The end of this temporary life is not the end of your story. It is the most breathtaking beginning your story was always reaching toward. You are not losing your life. You are finally, fully, and forever finding the real one that was waiting for you the whole time. You are stepping out of the long desert and into the garden that never withers. You are walking out of a house of pain and loss and confusion, and into a home where pain is no longer even a word anyone remembers, where loss is unknown, where the clarity is so complete that every confusion you ever carried simply dissolves in the light. You are leaving the shadows behind and stepping into a brightness so pure and so warm and so endlessly satisfying that every beautiful thing you have ever tasted in this life will turn out to have been only a faint and distant echo of the real thing. Death has already been beaten, fully and finally by my Son, and the grave has been emptied of its power and its terror. It is not a dark and lonely ending. It is a doorway, a simple and beautiful doorway that opens directly into my presence. And I am standing in the very center of that doorway, my arms thrown open, and my face full of the love that has been burning for you since before the first star was ever spoken into the dark. So do not be afraid, and do not keep glancing back over your shoulder at the old and painful things you are leaving behind. Keep your eyes locked on me. The shadows are melting away at the edges even now, and the eternal morning is breaking in front of you more beautifully than any sunrise you have ever watched. So you can lay down, tonight, the quiet dread of the unknown that has been following you for years, the fear of endings, the fear of what comes after, the fear you rarely speak aloud, but that tightens in your chest whenever the thought drifts near. You have been afraid of that doorway because you imagined it leading into darkness, into silence, into separation from everything you love. But I have shown you what truly waits on the other side of it, and it is not less life but more, not the loss of everyone you love but the reunion with them, not darkness, but a light so kind it heals you just to stand in it. So the thing you feared most turns out to be the gentlest passage of all, watched over from both sides by the same love that has kept you every day until now. And because the very last fear has been answered, the smaller fears that have ruled your days begin to lose their grip too, for once you are no longer afraid of the end, there is very little left in this world that can truly frighten you. You can live now with your hands open and your head up, free of the dread that was quietly draining the color out of everything. Because you finally know how the whole story turns out, and it turns out in light. And so the night is ending. Look back for just a moment at the whole journey we have made through these dark hours together, because you are not the same person who sat down at the beginning of it. You came in carrying the world on your shoulders, with fear gripping your heart and doubt clouding your mind and shame whispering your name from the corners of the room. And one by one, weight by weight, costume by costume, I have been lifting it all off you. You emptied your soul of the baggage you were never meant to haul. You forgave the oldest and deepest of your hurts. You loosened your grip on the wheel and fell, at last, into arms that were always beneath you. You let the robe replace the rags. You guarded the garden of your mind. You let the tears fall and felt the long-delayed healing finally begin. You opened your hands and chose the treasure that lasts. You lifted your voice in the dark when it would have been easier to stay silent. And now, with the first gray light beginning to soften the edge of the sky, I want you to take one deep and final breath of surrender and simply rest in the promise I made long ago that all who are weary and weighed down may come to me, and I will give them rest. Feel how different you are now from the person who first grew still tonight. The fear that gripped your chest when we began has loosened its hold. The shame that whispered your name from the corners has gone quiet. The weight that bowed your shoulders has been lifted off, piece by piece, and set down where it belongs, in hands strong enough to carry it. You did not become a different person tonight. You became instead more fully the person I always made you to be, the one buried under all those years of fear and noise, finally uncovered. The strength I planted in you before your first breath is awake again. The love is flowing again. The clear and steady mind is yours again. And none of it can be taken from you when the morning comes, because none of it was ever given to you by the world in the first place. It was placed in you by me, and what I give, I do not revoke. So you are not walking out of this night the way you walked in. You are walking out lighter, freer, and more yourself than you have been in a very long time. You came, you brought your burdens, you trusted me with them, and I am keeping my word. You do not have to struggle anymore. You do not have to prove your worth to a single living soul. You do not have to earn a place in my heart, because that place has been yours since before time itself began. You do not have to lie awake fearing the economy, or the headlines, or the diagnosis, or the outcome, because I have already overcome this entire world. And in me you have a peace that nothing in it can break. You have wandered through the wilderness of this life for so long, feeling overlooked and misunderstood and drained dry by a world that takes and rarely gives back anything your soul truly needs. But that long wandering is coming to its appointed end, and what waits beyond it is more beautiful than your tired imagination has ever been able to hold. You are my cherished creation, and I am proud of you. Not because you never stumbled, and not because you were ever flawless, but because every single time you fell, you reached again for my hand, and every time the storm rose to drown you, you called my name, and every time the darkness closed in, you chose to trust me when you could not see a thing. That is the faith that moves my heart. That is the faith that changes everything. And I want you to hear me say the thing your soul has been starving to hear for longer than you can remember. I love you. Not the way the world has taught you. Love must be earned, doled out in proportion to how useful or impressive or well-behaved you manage to be. I love you completely, and I love you perfectly, and I love you with a love that has no end and never will. I do not love you because of what you produce or achieve or contribute, and I will not love you less on the days you produce nothing at all. I love you for the simplest and most unshakable reason in all the universe, which is that you are mine. You were mine before you were born. and you have been mine through every wandering and every failure and every silent night. You were sure you had drifted too far to be wanted, and you will be mine forever, beyond the reach of anything that could ever try to take you from my hand. There is nothing you could do tonight to make me love you more than I do at this moment, and there is nothing in your whole history that has ever made me love you less. You can stop performing for that love now. You can stop auditioning for a place that has had your name on it since before the first morning ever broke over the world. You are already home in my heart, and you always were. And look now at the window, because while we have been talking, the dark has quietly lost the argument. The gray has warmed at the edges, and the first true gold is beginning to spill across the rim of the world, and the birds that were silent through the worst of the night have started, one by one, to sing. This is how it always ends. The night feels endless while you are inside it, and the morning feels impossible, and then it comes anyway, without asking your permission, exactly the way I promised it would. You did not have to manufacture this dawn. You did not have to earn it or force it, or stay awake to make sure it arrived. You only had to wait through the dark and trust that the one who set the sun in its place would bring it back around again. And that is the very thing I am asking you to remember about every long night still ahead of you, in every season for the rest of your life. The darkness is never the end of the story with me. It is only the chapter before the morning. So when the next hard night comes, and it will, do not despair as though the sun has died. It has only gone around to the other side of the world for a little while, and it is already on its way back to you, and so am I, always faithfully without fail. So, as the morning comes up gold over the edge of the world, I want you to carry this night out into the day with you and not leave it behind in the dark. Carry the peace you found in this stillness into every noisy and chaotic room you will walk into. Carry the love you received here into every face you will meet and every relationship you will touch. Carry the truth you finally heard tonight into every dark moment that will try, later, to convince you all over again that the lies are more real than the promises. Something genuine happened in your spirit in these hours. Something shifted, something heavy was set down, and something living was picked up in its place, and you must not let the rush of the world crowd it out the moment you step back into it. So guard it and protect it and feed it and let it grow until it touches every corner of your life. And then, when you find someone who is carrying the very weight you walked in here carrying tonight, do not hesitate. Be the one who points them toward the light when they cannot find it on their own. Be the voice that reminds them they were never alone. Be the hands that reach for someone quietly going under and pull them back towards solid ground. Because that, in the end, is what you were always made for. Not only to be loved, but to become someone through whom love is poured out. Not only to find the light, but to become it for someone still standing in the dark, unsure which way to turn. You are loved beyond all measure, and beyond all words, and beyond your present ability to fully take it in. So walk forward now, out of the night and into the new day, with your head high and your heart open and your spirit free. The journey is not over, it is only beginning, and I will be with you, faithfully and tenderly, through every single step of the way, now and for all the mornings still to come.